Welcome to the Invasion of the Remake podcast. I'm your host, Jason Bishop, and this week I am joined by Trish Coughlin.
Hey, everybody.
And back from vacation is Sam Stepanenko.
Hello, I'm back. Yay!
Yeah, he was on a run, but he escaped.
He was.
It really did feel like that.
But he took us with him, from what he told me. He took it.
Oh, nice.
We kept him company on the run. So.
Yeah, it was
that's awesome.
7 hours in each direction, and I listened to our old podcasts the whole way.
Nice.
Because I needed to hear a human voice, and I was tired of listening to music, so...
Awesome. Yeah, podcasts are great for, long journeys.
That's right.
I do that all the time.
And hours are long, so if you have a long journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I only got 3 in either direction, so it was pretty good.
Nice. I wish we had ours when I went to Iceland. I would have liked that. I did a bunch of How Did This Get Mades as I did the drive around there.
Yeah. Plug.
Yeah.
We like them.
They're fun.
But they need to like me, too.
Yeah, please like us. We just want to be loved.
I need some validation. Okay, so this week we are doing Logan's Run, which has been a bit of a point of contention between me and Trish, but
yeah.
she exercised the birthday you can't turn me down option.
I did.
So, and the reason I kept turning this one down is it's been back into kind of active production.
But it's been in and out of production for going on 30 years
it is.
now.
It's been in active and inactive remake production since the early 90s.
Yeah. We'll be Peter Ustinov's age before they probably get this thing done.
Yeah, and it is getting some traction again right now, but it's on and again, off again, and they're kind of looking for something to replace Hunger Games as a major franchise.
I think that's why part of it was waiting.
Yeah, and so at the end of the day, I'm like, since they seem to be having trouble, let's help them out.
Exactly.
And then if it actually does happen, we'll revisit it. So, and that'll put us in a kind of a unique position that we haven't done on this show before, and get to revisit something that hadn't been remade and then is.
Yeah, how it differs from maybe our vision.
Yeah, so we can add that into it. Initially, I was kind of dreading the thought of having to watch this movie again, but from my memories as a kid, I'm like, oh, it was so fucking boring as a kid. Yeah. As an adult, I kind of dug it.
It's a strange movie. I think you have to be of a certain age to appreciate it. Yeah.
It's a very strange movie, and one of the things I noticed really right early on is this movie came out probably less than a year before Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting. You can really realize how much Star Wars changed special effects for science fiction films.
Yes.
Because the special effects in this were pretty
bad,
hokey. They were. I'm assuming good for the time. I'm looking to remember, but
it was a holdover, I think, from the early 70s approach to things, like how they kind of created an otherworldly feeling was like slow-mo, and that was weird. And then the otherworldly, they used light and the shock jumps of how the camera work was done, but it wasn't really.
Well, I got to give them some credit for trying to stick as practical as they could within the film. They could have just done animation for their guns and for the special effects on that, and the city as well. They could have done matte paintings, but they built this gigantic miniature thing with moving parts, and it kind of looks fake, but when I was doing the research, some of those buildings were 4 feet tall. That wasn't a small city.
Oh, and I'm not belittling the effort of painting by any means.
Great. It just doesn't look great enough. So it has that bit of everything feels a bit 60s throwbacky on it, and I'm not sure if that was intentional or not.
And it's an idea where the future is very shiny and pastel.
And sterile.
And Buck Rogers-ish.
Yeah.
And very utilitarian, not aesthetically pleasing per se.
Yeah.
So, I'll agree with that. No, and you know what? I'm willing to bet in 1976. Again, it was pre-Star Wars. It probably looked pretty darn good. I mean, we are jaded.
Yes,
admittedly, but it was noticeable to me with my jaded eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when this thing came out, I was 3 years old, so I didn't get to see it till many years later.
Yes.
And yeah, I didn't get it. I didn't get it at the time.
I think you have to have a certain perspective to really appreciate it. You have to be, I think, of a certain age to realize, oh my God, time is running out.
Yeah, and it is kind of nuts, but we'll get into that. Logan's Run was from 1976, directed by Michael Anderson, who also directed Around the World in 80 Days back in 1956. Based on a novel by William F. Nolan and George Clayton Johnson, and both have film credits unto themselves. Nolan did Trilogy of Terror 1 and 2,
Nice.
and Clayton Johnson did the Ocean's 11 trilogy.
Oh, those are both really good.
I know, right? And the screenplay was developed by David Zalag Goodman, who wrote Straw Dogs.
Oh, wow. That's some good talent
That's some
on
good
this
cred.
movie.
There's some good cred there. Budgeted at $9 million, and it grossed $25 million in the U.S. alone. So,
Big hit.
you know, pretty good hit for 1976. Starring Michael York, who most people probably know from Austin
Austin
Powers
Powers.
at this point. Yeah.
Basil Exposition. That's what my wife said when we were watching. She says, "Oh, it's Basil Exposition."
What's worse, I've seen him in a bunch of other films, but ever since Austin Powers, he's just Basil Exposition. Because even in Austin Powers, I'm like, I know that guy, but I've seen him 1,000 times, but that was the one role I remember him for.
Yeah.
See, and I always remember him as Logan because I remember when we were watching. I saw him first in Austin Powers. I'm like, oh, that's Michael York. He played Logan 5 in Logan's Run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all about your timing.
That's
Yeah.
right. Jenny Agutter?
Agater?
Yeah.
The British,
Pick
most
one.
British shows I've seen, they call it Agater.
And that's where most of her credits come from. She was on Spooks. She's probably more known for, to the American audiences, for some more recent material. Child's Play 2, Captain America 2, Winter Soldier.
Nice.
And, of course, The Avengers. She was playing, like,
Yeah.
a politician. And Richard Jordan, who played Francis in the movie, he was in Hunt for Red October and Dune. Roscoe Lee Brown has been in a ton of stuff. You might not know the name, but you'd recognize the voice right away. He plays Box in the movie.
Yeah.
And you'd know him more for voice work, I think, than anything else. Treasure Planet, Babe, stuff like that. Small role by Farrah Fawcett.
Yeah.
Michael Anderson Jr., no nepotism there. He played the Doc, and Peter Ustinov played the old man in the movie.
The crazy old man.
He was so much fun.
I think everybody
liked
was
him.
fucking nuts in this movie.
I want to keep the cats. I love the cats.
The crazy cat man.
I know.
Yeah, no, the cats have to stay.
Yeah. So, actually, I think I'm going to run the trailer a little early here because
Nice.
it's a longer trailer and it should get the audience a little caught up. So,
Oh, for sure.
be right back after this important trailer.
Just imagine a world where you will hold your entire future in the palm of your hand, when a tiny glowing crystal will guide you through an existence in which each day is more wonderful than the last, where it will be possible for you to obtain the fulfillment of every fantasy, the satisfaction of every vanity, the absolute attainment of every wish.
Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer presents the Saul David production of Logan's Run. A fantastic journey through a world beyond imagination. Welcome to the 23rd century. The perfect world of total pleasure. Imagine a world in which you need never be alone. You touch a switch, turn a dial, and the perfect lover steps into your arms. Every pleasure is yours to experience.
Runner!
There's just one catch.
When the tiny crystal in the palm of your hand flashes its final message, your time is up. Michael York is Logan.
Run, Logan!
Policeman in a perfect world.
No!
Trained to track down runners.
Run, Logan!
Until he is forced to run himself.
He's a runner.
Logan!
I'm your friend, I understand. We all go crazy once in a while. But she's a runner, and it's over.
Overwhelming, am I not?
Bucks, an incredible being. More than human, more than machine. Diabolical guardian of the gateway to freedom. For Logan and the woman who loves him.
getting old.
MGM takes you into a new age of adventure in the first motion picture of the 23rd century. Logan's Run. It begins where imagination ends.
All right, that was the trailer. I think it did a great job of catching you up on the plots. And if it didn't, just go watch the movie. And you can hit pause, come back.
Yeah.
We'll wait.
Yeah. And it is definitely worth watching.
Yes.
It is. I think so, too. It definitely is worth watching.
Especially if you're over 30.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My big complaint is it is a long-ass movie. Like,
it's a full 2 hours.
When I hit the, and yeah, 2 hours doesn't sound long, but I hit a point where I'm like, all right, we're ended. We're just gonna have a little bit of closure. It goes on for another fucking half an hour.
Yeah, they could streamline some stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, it goes into essentially another episode or something.
Yeah,
and I can see maybe where someone get the idea of doing a television series, which did happen a year later, but it was post Star Wars, and everybody said it was in reaction to Star Wars, which I don't think it would have been. This was always meant to be a franchise, and then never took off because it got crushed a year later.
Yeah, and Star Wars changed everything.
And I could see how this may have been a tough sell as a franchise at the time, because it's all over the place. They had to edit some stuff to get it down to a PG rating, and then I watched this movie, and I'm like, this is PG.
I know.
In 1976, yeah, that was... But they did a really good job of being suggestive without being graphic.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
there's quite a bit of nudity in it,
but
though.
not that you can see.
But the
There's
nudity
only
is
one
not...
scene where you actually see a breast. The rest of it's all in shadows or underwater. It's all actually very tastefully done.
Well, that whole bit in the sex club is very artful. Like, it's very artistic to
there is
suggest
some frontal nudity without
an orgiastic thing.
Yeah.
But the frontal nudity is just, it's... When they do show her and she's like partially naked, she's getting undressed because her clothes are soaked and they're in a very cold environment. And if she doesn't do that, like, she's going to get hypothermia.
Yeah.
It wasn't very well handled in context, yes.
Yeah, it's practical.
From what I read about, there was the ice sculpture. They actually posed for box for a new ice sculpture, and that was an extended nudity scene. I did see what was able to be recovered and pieced back together. I found a YouTube thing where they had the audio for it and a few stills that they were able to put together. The cut scenes fell victim to the MGM purge, so I think they just got tossed out. There was another one that got cut, and I guess it was because of drug use and making it look like in a positive light. And this is an idyllic society. It exists for pleasure. It says right in the opening narrative credits there. I wish there was a narrator because I'd play it, but just kind of describing the world, and it does exist solely for pleasure. It's a very hedonistic society.
Yeah, hedonism is the exact right word. And it's interesting because the original book was written as a social commentary about the power of youth in 60s society, late 60s society. It was a direct response to the protests, the Vietnam protests. Right? They seem to have changed that a little bit to reference the current culture in 1976, which was the hedonism of the disco era.
Yeah.
Right. So that
the debauchery.
So they've changed the focus a little bit to reflect the current times. And I think when we get talking to the remake, that's something that we need to look at is we need to change that as well so that it's timely and relevant, because I think it is a great social commentary, both the book and the movie.
Well, we do live in a very self-indulgent society at the moment too, so I think
for sure.
I think those themes certainly play just as well now as they did in the 70s.
And
to a certain extent, but I think there's a lot more to be offered.
And there's still that whole thing where, like, unless you're young and beautiful, you have no value.
Oh, certainly that has not changed.
Yeah, in the original book, this society that lives in this dome from the rest of the world. And do you guys remember why they had the dome? Was it pollution? Or
I think it was because it was supposed to be like there was a whole thing. There was some sort of catastrophic event.
Yeah.
And then they built the domes to keep everybody kind of safe, and everything outside is sort of considered to be like just this horrible dystopic area.
And at this point, you have to, when you have a domed society, you do need to keep a form of population control. So in the book, it was 21. In the movies, to facilitate a broader choice of cast, and God knows anybody who listens to this show knows when we get to recasting, we always have a tough time with younger actors.
And to be fair, like, I know what they did with 21. I get where you're going, but to me, that seems to be kind of pointless, because once you hit 21, that's really when you're hitting your stride of hedonism.
And you're just getting to a point of maturity to be able to tackle the world. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. A society that would grow only to 21, that nobody would be productive.
To keep anybody in check. Like, and I mean, 30 kind of, you get to the point where you're like, okay, this is how society works. I know, get a kind of a feel for it. But what also kind of what made me wonder is, like, you have the Sandmen, and everybody else is kind of like hedonistically doing whatever they want, and the Sandmen have like a job.
There's only two classes. Well, there's the aging, and everybody's wearing color coded.
Yeah, yellows are young, like.
Yeah, their clothing represents the colors of the crystals that are on their hands.
They're called the blossoms.
Yeah.
Yeah, the blossom flower on the hand.
Yeah, they're essentially clocks as they count down to 30. And then they go black. And once they start blinking, they have to go to carousel. In the movie, it's carousel. In the book, it's the sleep centers. And which makes the Sandmen make a lot more sense as a title. So if you don't willingly go, then the Sandmen come after you, and that's essentially the person running.
Yeah. You're considered a runner.
They changed it more into this, I guess, cult-like ceremony.
Very Roman.
Very, very Roman. That's what I was thinking. It was very Colosseum-like.
Except for those, with their robes and stuff, and those hockey masks that they were wearing.
Yeah. And then they're all lifted in the air and just sparkly destroyed, like exploded.
Well, and that's, again, we talked about the practical effects. That was actually neat. I was looking up how they did that.
Yeah.
Because there's this big blossom that they kind of rise to. Yeah. And in the minds of the citizens, they're being told that if you volunteer to carousel, you have a chance for renewal. Renewal being a form of reincarnation into the next genetic body. So the next Logan would essentially be
how Scientological.
How very Scientological, yes.
Yes. So, and the scene was done fairly neat. The blossom was actually on the floor. And then they had this big rigging as they raised everybody up, and
I did kind of like that.
One of the most complex things that they had done, and everybody was on their own separate lines. And it was very.
It looks quite cool. Yeah.
It did look very cool, and again, given the limitations of practical effects at the time.
Yeah, so they actually were lowering them for that effect, and then had just flipped it for film.
Nice.
So it looks like they're going up rather than down.
Yeah. And I liked the costumes. I thought they were probably the most interesting costumes.
I found all that kind of creepy, honestly.
That's what I liked about them.
Thing,
I mean, I liked it, but it comes off really creepy.
Well, it comes off also very kind of cultish
and ritualistic. Yeah, and that's I think that's what they were going for.
And that was the point. Like, it was just show and the people there just cheering it on kind of lent that also an air of like, this is insane.
Yeah, and it really is the only ritual they really have outside of the hedonism. So most of society is completely self-indulgent, and the Sandmen are there to make sure everybody...
The enforcers.
Yeah, they're the enforcers, essentially, to make sure everybody goes to carousel when their time comes, and just kind of keep the peace. And then the other ones, and they have these black outfits with gray stripes on their chests. And then if you notice in the background, there's the reverse of that costume, gray with the black stripe. And those were essentially janitors. I don't remember their exact title, but that's essentially, they were cleaners of some sort.
Yeah, and there was, because they came down once they killed one. There were these guys that came in. Like, not everybody lives a life of pleasure.
Yeah, which makes you...
Which is bullshit.
Yeah, all right. They clean up after the...
Like, here's the thing. If you're going to be a Sandman or a cleaner, shouldn't there be something where you're like, okay, you know what? You're doing a service. Maybe you can live a little longer. Like, there's no benefit to being that person.
No, they get special privileges. They hint at it in the movie.
Okay.
A little bit. When you look at Logan's apartment, his apartment is more extravagant, better equipped than... they don't show other apartments, but they suggest that's the reward, is you get a better living or better
Okay.
standard of
Status.
living than better standard of
Status.
living than the average populace because you do this extra service.
Okay.
Now, in a society that I think is almost fully automated, I kind of wondered why even these guys had functions. Wouldn't they have robots and stuff to chase these guys down? Or,
It was.
but I mean, maybe that's just the limitations of the 70s. But
Well, I think they touched base on that with Francis as well. That first interaction where he runs into that guy who's on last day or close to last day. Mm-hmm. When he runs into him and they give each other this glare and they have that
Yeah.
conversation about how I know that guy's going to run. I can tell.
I can
he's gonna
spot
run.
a runner.
I can spot a runner.
And maybe
I
that's
think they need that human
Simpsons.
intuition as part of the
Yeah.
to figure
Yeah.
out where they're going to run, how they're going to run. Because when they chase that guy later on, they basically use their intuitive skills
Yeah.
to hurt him.
Or they
Oh,
can
God,
strategize where he's going to
they're
go.
very sadistic about it.
It's
Like,
yeah,
I
it's
did-
quite cruel.
I wrote that down. They
Yeah.
are very sadistic.
they're getting a lot of pleasure of just teasing this guy and running him like a rat in a maze, and then before putting him down.
Oh yeah, they totally hurted him, and I think that's one of the pleasures they get out of being Sandmen is there's a certain cruelty in them, at least.
But I think it also points to the society itself. Like when they're watching these people explode, I realize it's renewal, but there's something really twisted about it. Like I'm watching people like I know I've been told renewal happens, right? That's great, but I know kind of in the back of my head they die. I can't ignore that. But people really love to watch these people explode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, not everybody renews, and they don't explain it very well in the film. But I think what they need to do is they need to reach that blossom in order to renew. That's the whole thrill of it, is to see if if any of these people are going to make it to the blossom to get the renewal. I didn't see anybody do it.
No.
Right.
Yeah, and it did seem like the only kind of social thing that brought everybody together in, like you said, this ritualistic way, but in a way it's a little bit like a gladiatorial thing too, where it's a bit that challenge of renewal, because they're rooting for everybody for renewal.
Yep.
But at the same time,
It's
they get
their
a real kick out
American
of it when
Idol.
people fail it. Right?
Yeah.
There was something I was going to mention, and when I was talking about casting, my wife said, "Well, don't they have to be British? Why aren't you going with British?" And I'm like, "Well, why were they British in the first place?"
Oh yeah, because it's the States. That's
the States.
That's what bothered me at the end. I'm like, why? Well, Richard Jordan wasn't. Jenny Agutter was, and Michael York was.
Yes, and Peter Ustinov
Ustinov.
is not American, or I don't know where he's from, but he's not.
Yeah, it didn't bother me, and nobody sounded like super British. Like
No, it didn't bother me, but
there seemed to be those tones, like they're trying to cover it up and sound American, but not quite. And
I know she didn't. She still sounded. There's
yeah,
the
it
British
shouldn't
accent.
sound heavy British. To
no,
me,
and I mean,
but-
it doesn't really matter. I mean,
but-
we're 200 and some years in the future, so
Yeah,
language changes.
Yeah,
But does it even have to be the U.S.?
Yeah, and it's an insular society,
Yeah.
so whatever was actually there, maybe that damn voice on the computer was just always British, so that's the accent everybody kind of developed
True.
over time. Could be as simple as that, and that's the program. The program's there to essentially lie to the citizens about renewal, and it's really just a control mechanism to keep the population under control.
Yeah, it's like HAL or any of those other computers. It's
Yeah.
kind of got a mission, and it sticks to that mission no matter what.
And they do kind of have a whole thing where later on in the movie they come to like the realization, like, okay, we know the ocean powers it, but there was a whole thing with like food and everything. They're like, yeah, they used to do that, but like it seems like the computer's failing. Like in the book, there is a whole thing about the computer failing, but in this, they sort of just hint at the computer's not doing very good at its job, and it's failing.
Well, and I think it's because in its mandate to keep everything under control, it doesn't involve humans in the things that it should be.
Yeah,
like
and
maintenance of
nobody's
machinery.
alive that was involved in its making that knows how to fix it.
That's
Yeah.
right, and it's not in a position to start training the
Yeah.
people of the society how to maintain it,
Yeah,
Yeah, and
because then that would reveal the secrets.
I
which
would
does
assume-
play in a bit into how I've got my
yeah,
remake.
and I would assume the program was there to protect the remnants of humanity until such time that they can go out, but nobody was there to. There was no assessment of the world after the fact.
Yeah.
So they just stayed there.
Nobody thought it had to be like, when does that happen?
Yeah,
no computer thought about it.
Old traditions went away. Like, they don't understand marriage. Everything, like, children are...
Yeah.
They don't understand family.
Yeah, they don't
Children
understand
are just
family.
kind of created and put into like they're gestated and then they're taken out.
Yeah, they're essentially seeds for the next...
And you don't know, there's no parentage. You have no idea who made you.
And these questions sit in some of these characters' minds. Jessica certainly thinks about them.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, she certainly does. And let's talk about the very first scene in the movie, actually,
Yes.
because this is,
Yes.
I think, where we already start to see Logan's kind of questioning their society and the way they live.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's there looking at his own baby, his own child. He doesn't know who the mother is. He's never going to have another interaction with his child.
Yeah.
And he's fascinated. And he has that conversation with Francis about "Don't you wonder?" Mm-hmm. Right. So already you're kind of seeing that Logan does have questions. I don't think he's they're fully formed, but somewhere in his mind he's already questioning things. And I think that's important to the way the rest of the movie plays out. Which I think it's what makes him susceptible to Jessica and the mandate he's given by the computer as well. Is, hey, maybe this is a chance for me to find some answers.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think he's already.
Yeah, he kind of wants to know, and the other guy's like, "Why are you even bothering? Like, you're an idiot for like looking inside." And he's like, "Well, I just want to look."
Yeah, I want to see my child at least once.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. I was kind of puzzled why the computer chose him in the first place. They don't really set that up, but I guess in this world, like, everything's seen by the computers, so maybe that's part of that opening sequence where, he has questions, but he has no problem doing his job, and they're not deep-seated questions, but it might be just enough curiosity to have the computer get him to do what it wants him to do, which is there are unaccounted for citizens, and he wants Logan to track them down in this mythical place called Sanctuary and destroy it.
I think part of the catalyst too is he found that key on the runner, for the very first runner.
Yes.
Right. And I think when he presented that into the incinerator or thingy machine that they have there, I think that's what the computer went, "Oh, somebody found one of these." I think that because he's already seen it.
Yeah, luck of the draw.
And he is one of the elite. He's an elite within the elite as well.
Yeah, he's
right.
Not
like he's supposed to be
a
one of the
lower-level
better
guy.
Sandmen. He's got high performance and a high capture rate and so on.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that those two factors played into it. I mean, it's not outwardly spoken, but the key was the catalyst, right? Because nothing happened until he put that key in there, and then the incinerator didn't work.
Yeah, you're right. I think because he was just happened to be the guy that carried the personal items to the computer. That's why he was picked.
Yeah, it was a lottery.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it really was. I think luck of the draw.
Yeah. And that whole chase at that initial run, the run that they go after, is happening during Carousel.
Yeah, he takes off in the middle of Carousel.
Yeah, which is nice and convenient because then they got this whole open area with no citizens to worry
Play
about.
cat and mouse with this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can start shooting all over the place, and they're not going to hit anybody because everybody's at Carousel.
Yeah.
Which also is like, I keep thinking the whole time, like, they do Carousel every day. Wouldn't you get bored?
Yeah. I saw somebody online did the math, like, okay, if there's about 30 people going to Carousel every day, and kind of did the math based on the population, and they figured the city
How long
was...
to age?
Oh, yeah, they figured the city was populated by about 400,000 people.
Yeah, because you'd have to have enough where that many would die every day, that many would be born every day, and everybody's aged long enough to get to, like, the next Carousel. And enough people at the same day.
Yeah. Oh, it was kind of fascinating. I'm like, oh, you smart mathematicians out there.
Oh, yeah. The mathematics of it is quite fascinating.
Yeah, beyond me, but
beyond
kudos
me
to
as
you,
well.
because now you've given us something to add to our podcast. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for doing the work for me.
Yay!
Because that was kind of cool.
And that's a good size for a city, actually.
Yeah, that's a good, decent size for a city.
Well, you look at the domes, and, like, because you see from far away, you kind of get an idea of them, but there's a lot of them covering a fairly significant portion.
Yeah. Well, before he goes to the computer with the Ankh from the runner, we do kind of get the establishing of what's going on with the citizens and our first appearance of Jessica. We see how hedonistic these people actually are.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I love this.
I called it a dial-a-lay.
Oh, see, I went Ultimate Tinder.
That's what I went to. I went Tinder. It's like they've forecast the future. They told they
It was, yeah.
because
Ultimate Tinder.
it totally was Tinder. He even left swiped on the guy. It was awesome.
Yeah, rather than swiping, the person's actually brought to you.
Yeah, standing in front of you, nah, that's not going to hurt your ego at all.
None whatsoever. No. But yeah, as soon as I saw it, I went. I'm ended up going Tinder. I got to keep that.
Yeah.
because that's really what it was.
Exactly.
That's true. Yeah, it was real life Tinder.
Yeah, and they call it the circuit.
Yeah, these people would get into the circuit, and then you could just kind of dial through them like a catalog, like on Tinder, until you found the person you wanted to have sex with.
Yeah, but it seemed to be like kind of random. So like a very chat roulette level. Where what you landed on was what got there.
Oh shit! We already live in this society.
we do to a certain extent, and that's goes into what I was talking about in the remake. Right, is we're already to a certain extent there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
on a much larger scale.
Oh yeah, completely. But
that would be a neat scene where you could still keep it and, like you said, left swipe, but it'd be like, rather than have the person standing in front of you, like maybe it's like a hologram or something that if you hit OK, it fully forms and brings that person from the circuit. Because I assume they've already, essentially, it's this transmat beam or something that's holding them in stasis until somebody dials them up.
Oh yeah, they could do it in there and it'd be like yes or no, and they can click right or yes or no on this one. They're like, yes, this one.
Yeah.
But it has to match. We could do that bit too.
Yeah.
Do the whole Tinder bit.
And Jessica put herself into the circuit because, I don't know, she was depressed and had some confusion over...
Yeah. Her friend died.
Her friend. And from what I was reading in the book, her friend was the one that was the runner who died.
Yes.
No,
that's what I got from the movie, actually.
Well, I got from the movie, I thought it was just one of the people who went to the carousel.
Oh, I just figured it was
her. No, I will be
friend.
honest, I kind of got the feeling that the friend that he just
killed
and that's
was the
something
friend.
They need, and I think it should be. It just it's not clear.
Yeah.
It's not clear, and it's an easy thing.
But it's a great
to
connection.
And yeah, to have that right off the bat and say, hey, dialed up by the person who killed her friend.
Yeah, and it can also kind of play into the fact that she's like, yeah, I put myself into it, and if it was anybody but a Sandman, I probably would have gone through with it.
Yeah. Well, and in her mind, it is murder.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she fully understands the concept of it.
Yeah, they don't
and Logan
talk about
doesn't
it
at all. Like
no.
he says, I've never killed anybody.
Yes.
And, well, we know that's not true because we saw it in the very first scene, and there's this complete lack of empathy and understanding of what it is he is doing.
Yeah, because it's his job. It's not killing. It's his job.
It's
but
just
it also
what he's
is
told to do.
What I was thinking about this whole time too. It kind of feeds into that their dystopic idea where they don't pair up and they don't spend a lot of time with other people because it's easier to disassociate somebody you've spent like time with, and then all of a sudden they become this nothing that you have to get rid of. You see, like they cease to become a person; they become a runner.
Yeah, and that's interesting because that made me sort of think about the one relationship he does have, which is with Francis, right? And Francis interrupts that whole interaction as well with bringing his party to Logan's house, right? Because Logan is the only relationship he has, and vice versa. So
eventually they would have to kill one, or the other has to kill the other,
or they go to carousel, right? And I think that's why they're allowed to have that relationship, is because the understanding is Sandmen will never run because they're Sandmen,
and they'll both go to carousel,
willingly because that's what good citizens do.
And they don't anticipate that change in their relationship will happen, whereas eventually they'll become something that isn't human, that is just something to be hunted and gotten rid of.
Yes.
Because that was the weird thing. I was like, the transition. I like if you had friendships, like deep friendships. I don't think they have that in the society. I don't think that's how it works because the concept's so foreign to them. Because it makes it easier to dispatch people if they're not real, like not a real person in your eyes. You know what I mean?
No, you're right. I think they have interactions and short-term agreements with other people, but they never have an actual relationship, with the exception, as I said, with his partner. Right? And I don't think the rest of society has that same type of any type of partnerships, right? Because they just live day to day, going to their love clubs and carousels and
And I think that's why the people who are the ones who want to get people out are different, because they yearn for those connections.
Well, they're part of a secret society, so they've developed relationships, right?
Yeah.
Right, such
Trust.
as they are. Yeah,
they
and
have
trust,
this understanding of trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, for in a society that is a lot of sex and drugs, and you'd think thered be need for more policing than they actually have, but
Yeah.
maybe it's all that does keep them passive.
They're detached.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that, I mean, when you really think about it, in order to have violence or any kind of sort of social unrest, you have to have relationships. You have to have people interacting with each other on a far deeper level than these people are.
And you also also have to have people whose needs aren't met, or feel that their needs aren't met. Like, or some feel lower than other people in the society. Like, because, yeah, people will justify all sorts of bullshit. They're like, well, I'm not getting what's due me. Like, no, it's that
but
selfishness.
everybody's equal in this society.
Yeah, but
right?
there's less selfishness, too.
Yeah.
They're not selfishly believing that other people have more than them. There's no reason to.
Yeah, I mean, you think about a bar fight. They usually start over one of two reasons. It's somebody knocked over somebody's drink, or they're fighting over somebody else.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not going to happen in this society because...
Or somebody appears to be more tougher than another guy, and somebody has to prove something.
That's right. Right. So, and I mean, you're not going to see this in the society because everybody's equal. And
Yeah.
you know
There's
what?
no
If that
ego.
girl you wanted to get with goes with a different guy, you just turn around and look for another girl.
You just get another chat roulette.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So a lot of these motivations that we have in current society for violence and
Yeah.
unrest aren't there.
And there's also that bit, too, like when she comes and she changes her mind, she says no. Like, he accepts that as a no.
Yeah.
Like, he
Yeah.
he tries to cajole her a few times.
Yeah,
but
it was like, well, why'd you put yourself on the circuit then?
Yeah, but he completely accepts that it's her choice to say no if she doesn't want to have
Yeah.
sex with him.
Yeah, and so far what we're saying is this society is actually more enlightened than the one that we currently live in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, and yeah.
You can change your mind before sex in this society.
Yeah, she eventually leaves just as Francis is arriving with two girls, and
Yeah.
then they throw this little pellet up in the air, and it's full of gaseous
Yeah, I
drugs,
think that's
and
like a drug. Yeah, that's a
it's-
drug thing.
Yeah, it's a drug thing, and then they go have fun.
Yeah, they do their thing.
They do their thing.
Yeah.
And then next day, he brings all those items to the computer, and the computer basically is saying, well, we want you to go undercover and go
And we want you to run.
find Sanctuary, and you have to run to do it.
Yeah.
And it reprograms his little flower crystal
Takes
thing on
4
his head.
years off of him.
4 years off of him.
And he keeps asking if he's going to get it back. And the
Nothing.
computer's like, what?
The computer won't answer.
I can't hear you.
Yeah.
We're done here.
We're done here. This is your task. You're going to go and do it. So he's... At the end of the day, everybody is expendable in society.
Yeah, I think that's also a part I would like to get more into, where he finally realizes, holy crap, I am expendable. It's like, even when I have time left, it's not fair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And really that should have been part of his motivation as he moved further along. Is referencing back to that, and he never does. Right? I mean, he just kind of it seems to me like he accepts it, but I know that realistically he probably didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Did you ever see this movie called In Time with Justin Timberlake?
Yes, it was
Yes.
brilliant.
It's kind of like the reverse of this movie.
Yeah.
You know, he's got all the time in the world, and everybody is living on a clock. They stop aging around 25, and they all have this clock that kind of
The
winds
wealthy
down.
have time.
Yeah, and time is a commodity.
Yeah, and the truly wealthy people have been young
Yeah.
forever.
It's a very reworked idea of this, and yeah,
It even has the running aspect.
yeah,
it
it'd be
Yes.
a good double feature.
It would be a
Oh, for
great
sure.
double feature.
Oh my god, yeah.
And that was a really good movie.
It was a really good movie.
It's an interesting concept, and that's
Yeah.
the whole point.
I kept thinking of it when I was watching about the
Yeah.
movie last night. So
What wouldn't you give to just have more time, to remain youthful and have more time even?
yeah. So this is kind of a similar idea.
It's definitely a very close cousin to it for sure.
Yeah. So now he's kind of sent out in the world, and he's got to make contact. And the only person the song turns out to be this important thing. And Jessica, when we first see her, is wearing it around her neck.
And he actually
Yeah.
asks her
on this
about
choker. Yeah. He
Yeah.
asks her about it. So now he's got to make contact with her again. And
So you find her.
appear empathetic to the cause. Like, okay, she's obviously knows something about this, and she plays it down. There's definitely a lack of trust there.
Oh yeah. Oh, and reasonably so.
Yeah, he's a Sandman. He's the boogeyman.
Yeah.
Right?
And like he just killed her friend. Come on. And then she meets with her other friends who they're like, well, I think he wants to get out. And they are suitably suspicious.
Well, they essentially
They were like, we're going to have to kill him.
Yeah, set him up. Yeah. And,
yeah,
they plan
through
assassination.
sheer fucking luck, he doesn't get killed.
No, yeah, because he's called on another run.
Mm-hmm.
And inexplicably, he takes her with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a weird choice. You're like, I'm going on a dangerous mission to the cathedral? Because the cathedral sounds like a dangerous place to go.
It's where the uncontrollable young go to grow up.
Yeah.
Well, she wanted to go.
She was quite forceful in her desire to go with him.
True,
Yeah,
but I mean...
he wasn't initially going to take her.
But think of it this way. If you're on, like, in today's time, if you're on a ride-along with a cop and you're like, yeah, no, there's a hostage situation, you can't just say, hey, can I come? No.
Yeah.
Well,
they can say no.
Yeah, and I think this leads into the naivete of the whole society. I mean, even the Sandmen have a certain amount of that, right? Because they're kept in the dark for a lot of things, and I mean, the Sandmen understand violence certainly a lot better than anybody else. But I think that he's kind of has that sense that it's like, well, I can protect her anyhow, because he's a very arrogant man.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's that whole idea of, you know how we're talking where he says, I've never killed anybody. When these people are put into renewal, there's no like real talk of death. Like, and when you're young, you have no concept of dying. Maybe that's that whole thing. You literally have no concept that this could end badly.
Yeah. Well, and maybe that plays into, because I didn't really understand the cathedral area. This is where they're going. It's a closed off area, and this is where they keep the cubs. Cubs being essentially teenagers.
Uncontrollable children.
Uncontrollable children.
But not every teenager ends up there.
I just wasn't sure about that.
And they never ascend. The cubs don't reach 30. The cubs are culled earlier than that.
Okay.
I think it's at 16, I think, they talk during that conversation with that one
they're
cub.
Violent.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He does say, it's like, you know what, you're going to have to leave here soon.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if they're being called or if they're being pulled into regular society from the cathedral. That was unclear
they get
as well.
a chance to move into society, and if they still haven't exhibited the proper social demeanor, then they get culled.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're just culled. I think that's the society's like, well, we can't kill children. Like, I feel it's the double standard that would be very appropriate for this type of society. We're like, well, we can't kill them when they're really young, but we can when they're 16. That seems reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, I took the wording quite literally when he said you have to leave here soon.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so I got the impression that once they reach a certain age, they have to leave the cathedral.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're taken out.
That they either have the choice of integrating into society or.
Yeah, I don't know if they're given a choice. If they can't integrate, they're just taken out.
Yeah. Now, at this point, I think Francis was at HQ and sees the call and realizes this could be a really tough job finding this runner in a hostile environment. So I think initially in his mind, he's going to go help his friend.
Oh, yeah.
His only real true friend.
Yeah, like I think he knows that they met somebody who was in the cathedral earlier and got hurt, and he's like, oh no, I'm going over to New U to get all fixed up. Everything will be fine. Mm-hmm. So I think that's also what Francis was thinking. Is like, maybe you can get a little hurt in the cathedral. Yeah,
that's right. So, yeah, Francis kind of leaves and eventually catches up, and as they find that, I'm skipping over the teens when they all circle around them when they enter the cathedral and are threatening their lives. Mm-hmm. And Logan just fires off his gun a couple of times, and most of them run. But
yeah.
I mean, but at the same time, he also gave them a chance to speak, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and it was a really interesting juxtaposition for me because he's very arrogant and has no empathy, but when it comes to these cubs, he gives them that chance to interact with them, so that he can try and talk them out of the violence, so he doesn't have to kill any of them.
Yeah.
And I get part of it is he's trying to sell who he is to Jessica.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how much is him trying to be a better person, or how much is just trying to appear to be a better person to Jessica.
Because I think he's been in the cathedral before, so I don't know if he was that understanding the last few times.
That's true. In my remake, these cubs are way more feral.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, for sure.
Like barely can speak English.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very bastardized language.
I feel they're put in there as like before they speak, and that's how they grow up. And the other cubs take care of the new ones just because they like to. Because they realize they're like, these are other children.
Base English language, but it's just very base, you know.
But
stern words.
But I
Lots
think
of
the
slang.
cubs are also very insular too. Like they'll get rid of any older person. Like I think it's very Children of the Corn in my mind. There's anybody older
it's
they'll
like
kill.
a second type of society like this, right? But
Yeah.
it's very feral and barbaric in juxtaposition, I to use that word again, to this very bright, shiny, enlightened
Yeah.
society.
They're
right?
still
And
killing people just at a younger age.
Yes.
Yeah, they're problem children.
Yes.
So yeah, he manages to scare them off, and then they do find the runner.
She looks well over 30.
Yeah, she looks a lot older. Than
I kept
30.
looking at her going, ooh, have you been tricking the system for a while? I would like to believe that.
Yeah,
Like, I would like to believe she figured out a way to reprogram her little light thing. Because that would be cool. Like, there's
Yeah.
a whole group of people who know how to reprogram them.
Well, and in the book, Francis somehow gets away with it, right? So
His was defective, I think.
Yeah.
It just didn't work.
Yeah,
and
it
then
just
he
didn't
realized it didn't work and then was like, oh, I'm just going to keep going with this.
yeah. So he just kept getting the plastic surgery to stay young.
And I love that idea.
Yeah, and I mean, you figure, you know, in the 23rd century, whatever, it'd be pretty good plastic surgery at that point. So
Oh, yeah. Like, they have the whole thing where it's like the laser and it heals and cuts at like the same time.
yeah, you go in. 15 minutes later, you walk out with a brand new face.
And
Yeah.
they can do a body.
Yeah.
The only reason he doesn't get undressed is because they're just doing the
Doing
face.
his yeah, and probably to keep the PG rating.
True.
But he encounters the runner and actually just talks to her a little bit and,
Yeah.
and gives her one of those aerosol drug things to use as a possible escape if she gets cornered.
Yeah, and I feel this is specifically for the benefit of Jessica.
Oh, this unquestionably is
Yeah, this is unquestionably for Jessica. Unfortunately, Francis is off in the background witnessing all this and witnessing Logan letting a runner go, and he's very serious about that job.
Yeah, and he's
And
having
he's-
a trouble now because, like
Yeah.
you say,
and
that's
he's
the
not
one
in,
connection.
Yeah, Logan's not allowed to tell anybody about this.
Yep.
So nobody knows, and he just thinks, well, what the hell's going on? He's seen his friend let somebody go.
and he's nowhere near his last day as far as Francis knows.
Yeah.
He doesn't know that Logan's blinking.
Yeah,
So he can't. And that's the thing. The whole blinking thing doesn't really come up much. It's only after Logan doesn't do his job when he gets into any trouble.
yeah,
Yeah, well, like, he keeps it hidden. Right? I mean, he keeps it hidden. He doesn't want anybody to know that he's close to last day.
Yeah.
Right? Because it starts blinking something like 48 hours before your last day.
Yeah, and it was like right when he was in the little chair that made it go blinking. So
yeah. No, I think I saw somewhere along the way it's somebody was paying attention to whatever their time system was, and the whole thing takes place over about 14 hours,
Oh,
which
nice.
doesn't jive with what I saw in film, but whatever.
I know that whole
There are
traveling
some-
to another place is going to take longer than the 14
there's
hours.
some nights and days there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that the time in the city may have been the 14, where there was about 14 hours.
Yeah, I can
And then
believe
once
that.
they leave, there's a longer passage of time because
that could be,
I mean, they indicate that in the last half hour that you'll talk about later.
Yep.
But yeah, they make it clear that their travels outside of the dome are much longer.
Yeah. Okay, so he lets her go, and I think at this point Jessica's like, okay, maybe he is.
I think she
legit.
was a little convinced before this. She was a little too easy to convince.
Yeah.
That's a change I'm making. But this was sort of what seals it.
Yeah. Somewhere along, I don't remember exactly where. It was a lot later in the film, but she does admit she was going to set him up to be murdered.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, that's okay, right?
Yeah.
We're cool now, right?
Yeah, it was between the runner where they let the runner go, and then they go to the new U to get
Right.
him
Yeah.
the new face.
Yeah, and
And he picks the right one. Was New U number 483,
Yeah.
and he's like, I think there's someone there to help me, and that's how. And she's like, yeah, I think you're right.
yeah. Well, doesn't she take him to see those guys first, or
No.
No?
Those guys were watching at the cathedral and kind of come out after her. But he decides to go to this particular New You because that was when he was wondering about that guy that he kills. His face, he's like, it doesn't look like the face I've got. And then it confirms.
He was just following a lead.
And then it confirms New You, number 483. He's like, oh, okay, and that's why he decides to go there.
Yeah.
Because obviously they've made at least one face for a runner.
Yeah, and they make it feel really casual in that scene where he's like, I think I need a new face today.
Yeah.
And, we can go to whatever. I'm like, I'm going to go to this one. I hear good things.
Yes. Yeah, he's like, I think there might be someone there to help me. Hint, hint.
Wink, wink.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah.
Into what was probably the worst scene in the movie for me. That scene was really...
It was bad.
It's awkward, yeah.
It was really awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got Farrah Fawcett where they're like, that was the whole thing. We got Farrah Fawcett.
Yeah.
We don't know what to do with her.
I
got her.
didn't even cast her character again because the only reason that
me either.
I did. Very specifically, because she was huge in the 70s.
Yeah, she was.
I mean, mainly as a pinup model or whatever, but
And
really,
Charlie's Angels.
there was Charlie's Angels, I guess, and she was married to Lee Majors at the time.
Was Westworld before or after this movie? I can't remember.
I think it's before.
Yeah, she was in that.
Close.
Yeah,
it's close.
It's around the same time frame for sure.
So she was a huge star at the time. So I kind of kept that in mind. Like, I want a small throwaway scene with like the biggest actress of our day right now of that age group, and I'm just gonna keep it a shit throwaway character.
Oh man!
Did you cast J-Law?
I totally did.
I know, that was where I went.
You know what, I actually did think of myself. I actually did think that myself.
I totally did. I'm like, this is for Jennifer Lawrence right here.
And because she's already been in one of these dystopian future movies. Why not throw her in? That's even a better connection, right?
Yeah, and I just felt like, oh man, I don't want to skip too far into casting, but I'm like, this would be hilarious because it's a connection to a similar type of movie with the Hunger Games. And it's a nice...
and somebody who knows what's up.
It's an Easter egg, but at the same time, she's definitely the biggest actress of her age group right now.
Oh, hell
Most certainly, yes.
Like, maybe even in any of them. Like, she's just huge right now.
Really, even amongst actors, she's bigger than a lot of them.
So, I mean, that would be great. Wouldn't require a lot of time commitment on her part. And... great Easter eggs. So
and she's a far more competent actress than Farrah Fawcett was at that age.
That was terrible.
Yeah. It was
like,
hard
Farrah.
to watch because I know she's better than that. I know that she was a better actress.
She is capable, and this is not indicative of that.
No,
I'm not sure she had a script at that point. What am I doing here?
It's like, hey Farrah, just stand around and look pretty,
and
then we'll tell you what your line is like right before we shoot.
Yeah, they're like, hey Farrah, you're a bimbo, now go.
Yeah, it really did feel like that.
And that was it.
Yeah, I thought so too, because when they were talking about the face, and she's like, pick dark hair. I like dark hair.
Yeah. And see that...
You're a handsome guy, but change your looks to suit my needs.
That could have been an interesting take too, like when if she's aware of what's going on, she's aware of what happened, she's aware of what the doctor's been doing, what would be great is like if she could be just like a distraction, somebody who knows what's going on but is using her feminine wiles to be like, okay, so he doesn't know what's going on, I'm going to play to something. It could have been an interesting take, but it didn't.
Yeah, and I mean, in that scene, they're trying to drop hints to the doc that he is a runner. He doesn't trust it either. He's a Sandman after all, and he gets this call or something out of the blue. Like, we don't hear any
I
of the
think
real
it was the guys
conversation.
who followed them to
the assassination team.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So they're basically saying that now it's
Citadel.
up to you to do this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
They're like, we still don't trust him. We're not
again,
convinced.
not a clear scene, but it was obviously somebody saying you got to murder this dude.
Oh, yeah. Which means they are connected and they are paying attention.
Yeah, and they are in the system. Like, they are able to manipulate from inside.
Yeah, certainly, yes. And I mean, they make that very clear that there are no Sandmen involved, but certainly every other level of society, what levels they have, definitely has...
They're in the New World Order.
Yes.
But they don't really understand what the New World Order is, because they get
Because
people out, but there's nowhere to go.
That's right.
Yeah.
They think they're going somewhere.
Well, I mean, it's another level of this, completely mindless belief. They're like, there's a place called Sanctuary. We know it exists. We're pretty sure it exists.
And you almost wonder if that's a religious commentary. Right? It's like if you do well and take all the right steps, you'll reach nirvana or heaven or whatever your place of enlightenment might be.
Although, to be fair, what I always kind of thought had happened was a long time ago, Peter Ustinov's parents had escaped that place. They had the little jewels in their hands, which is why he didn't have them. They escaped once, they found out, they kind of got a good idea of what was happening, and they were the first ones to get out. So, of course, that legend keeps going forever.
Yeah, I don't know if I disagree there. I think Ustinov existed in the world as it was. Like, I think he was born without that crystal. Like,
I believe he was born without them, but I believe his parents may have had them.
Yeah, I don't know, but
I like that idea.
He's been isolated and really only has his cats, so he's pretty much off his rocker and doesn't remember too much.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Trisha on this because it makes a certain amount of sense. Because you figure he's probably in 70, 80 years old.
Yeah.
His parents would have been, let's say, 30, so it still would have been about.
I like the idea.
Yeah.
It certainly put it into the remake. It's not there on the screen,
but it kind of
it's
helps.
all conjecture.
Yeah,
so.
and a lot of this movie is kind of conjecture, but.
Oh, sorry, yeah. But it helps explain Sanctuary.
Yeah, well, and that would be kind of cool as a setup. Yeah, well, I'll get there because that's part of my remake stuff. I don't have an actor in mind for that particular role, but he'd only be on screen for about 30 seconds in my remake. So.
I think you'll like who I cast.
Cool.
Nice. Cool. I want to see who you cast.
There's lots of cool classic elderly actors at this point, so I've no problem. I didn't even, in my mind, I'm like, as long as they appear over 30, it could be anybody.
Oh, yeah.
They don't actually have to look elderly.
I didn't actually go super elderly.
Yeah.
I went reasonably elderly, but again, because I wanted him to have that age, I wanted to, right, because I wanted that disconnect from society.
Oh, yeah.
To have affected him as well as his age, right?
Yeah.
I've got somebody in their 60s.
Well, anyway, we get this failed assassination attempt from the surgeon, the doc, and there's a fight, and
which I would keep as like a more epic fight scene. Yeah. I like that idea.
And the doc does kind of fall victim to his own laser beams, and it's very Bond-esque kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just that with the lasers flying around, and it's like, how are they not getting hit by these lasers?
Yeah, I would make changes.
Yeah, it needs to be.
Oh, it could be.
Fixed,
the drama can definitely be moved up, and it's a very easy thing to just to make a more exciting scene. So they escape, and now he's officially kind of on the run. Something's happened here. Somebody's been killed, and he's now running from other Sandmen.
Yes.
Sandmen.
Yes.
And is the next stop, I know how to get out, and that's where they go through the orgy club?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is very surreal.
It's slow-mo, which threw me off. I was like, what's happening?
Right, and how they got
here?
separated, and it was brilliant, though, because it was a really great way of showing how truly hedonistic the society was.
Without showing, still getting the PG rating.
Yes, without being graphic. And, I mean, I kind of preferred it that way. I didn't need to see...
I mean, everybody's really naked. I mean, I did see a penis. I saw boobs.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's naked.
Yeah.
It's hinted at enough.
Yeah.
But I would like
silhouettes.
But it's all dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would like to add, the drug aspect at the beginning with the gas. I would like to keep that there, as part of it.
And I think that's what the part of that aspect was. With
why
that
it's slow
and very surrealness to it, and this hollow sounding. I think it was meant to feel like that these guys were in a drug stupor, and
the room was probably infused with the gaseous drugs to keep them in that sort of constant,
erotic
perpetual state of
everything slowed down.
Ecstasy, and make the pleasure last longer, right?
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I think that's what the scene was meant to invoke. It just, again, I think it was done more for artsy sake.
Oh yeah, it's a very 70s era.
Yeah.
Late 60s, most of the 70s, very artistic. That really does give it a stamp, a time stamp when you look at the movie.
Especially considering that was the heyday of recreational drugs.
Yeah.
I mean, they're never going away, and they were there before. But I mean, when you talk about the mid to late 70s, that was like everybody was using recreational drugs.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
That was literally all the cool kids are doing it.
Yeah.
Now Francis is in pursuit again. He's very
tenacious.
Tenacious, yeah. I think tenacious is a very good description of Francis.
Yes.
Once he's focused on who he's after, he does not give
That's
up.
part
He's
of
fucking
it.
Judge Dredd, man.
That's part of it. And I think too, he was, to a certain extent, he was heartbroken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? The
He
fact
felt
didn't wanna-
betrayed.
Yeah, that his friend was actually going to run.
Yeah.
Right? And that kind of comes across during their final interaction.
Yeah, it's really against
Yeah.
his beliefs.
Yeah.
Do you think he
believes
believed
in
that
the
they'd
system.
get renewed together?
I
Our friendship will happen again. We just have to wait.
I think that there was a part of that, yeah, because I think, I mean, like I said, we talked about the relationships, and when you only have one person out of 400,000, right, that you actually have a real connection or interaction, like relationship with, then yeah, you're going to really tie yourself to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you've got nothing else.
You got nothing else.
Like, and sometimes the society, there's only so much hedonism you can do. And then you're like, okay, I need to take a bit of a break.
Yeah, and they don't do a really good job of expressing the loneliness of everybody else.
No.
The only one who sort of reflects that loneliness is Jessica.
Yeah, at this point, she's pretty convinced, and this escape route is her choice.
Yeah.
And to take her to her friends and convince them to get him to Sanctuary. Now, Logan thinks that he's being taken to Sanctuary. Mm-hmm. And once he gets there, he does signal the other Sandmen. He kind of has the open comms thing going on. Hits something on his belt. And,
Yeah, some sort of alarm to draw them to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he plays his hand a little too soon.
Yeah, little too soon.
Very much too soon.
When he realizes, especially when he realizes he's not at Sanctuary.
Yeah.
Nope.
And he's being kind of guided like a rat in a maze still, and the Sandmen show up, more carnage as we got everybody fighting each other, and it's kind of one-sided battle because the Sandmen have these really cool, what are supposed to be really cool guns.
And see, what I would have liked to have seen is, like, I definitely would expand on that battle just because I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
And
Well, I'd
maybe
like to
have
see
a
the-
few more rebels.
Yeah, I'd like to see the guns reflect more of the gun that are actually in the book. Now, the ones they developed for the screen, like I said, they didn't animate them, so what they did, they were like these butane guns that would ignite when fired, hopefully.
Oh, yeah. It looks very...
Yeah, and it looks all right, I guess.
They look taserish.
They tried to make it everything practical, and I don't know, it looks a little weird, but the guns in the book are multifunctional.
Yeah.
Like, they have,
different ways of killing people.
Well, yeah, different ways of killing people. Some of the bullets are like these heat-seeking bullets, which we have now.
Yes.
So, like...
But their effect is slightly different, where they
Yeah.
ignite all the nerve endings on the person it hits, which
Yeah.
sounds terrible.
Yeah, so I'd reflect some of the options in the book and just say, hey, like, there is something to these guys.
You'd
Because
have
they're the only armed people in the cities.
They are, yes. And yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see, as Trish was saying, is to have that battle a lot less one-sided and a lot more epic.
Yeah, like it feels like there's something happening here, and I would like to see the Sandman kind of come to a realization where, like, going, holy crap, we have to actually be good at this. Oh no, like, I want them to not be aware of how strategically they're not thinking ahead.
There's an earlier scene where we actually see people doing like a gym, and they're doing backflips and things like that. Like, I want,
But it's theoretical for them.
I want the athleticism within the Sandman being reflected in like a parkour kind of mixed martial arts kind of style. Like,
Or
in the books, they actually do have a kind of mixed martial arts type of form of combat that they do. And so you can totally bring that in and mix it with a parkour kind of aesthetic. So that would make for some really interesting looking action scenes.
It could make some really interesting action scenes. And there wasn't a lot in this movie, really.
No, for running, it's really just...
it's mostly just running.
It should be called Logan Escaping.
Logan
Because
Escaping.
there's not a lot of even running, really.
There's running here and
Yeah,
there.
like, all right, let's get on here and on the tram. That'll give us some...
Logan running and walking and sauntering and hiding.
Logan getting away.
Logan getting away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Logan's ambulatory escape.
So, I want to see some actual running, like some free running, man.
Yeah,
like,
so,
that'd be fucking awesome.
I like where you're going with that, especially it could be really interesting during the scene after they get away from the battle there.
Yeah. But I would like to see some of that fail. Like, I would like to see where the Sandmen, sure, they've trained for it, but the practicality of some of what they've been doing doesn't work. Like, I would like to see that breakdown. I think that would be funny.
I think the other thing too is what happens when somebody fights back.
Somebody fights back and knows how to fight back.
Yes.
Somebody can counter-strategize against you, because they never faced that before.
Well, but they're still trained, but, they've only been really combating with themselves. Most people give up to the guns.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And the guns make it easy for them.
So they wouldn't
know
what to do.
At the same time, the regular citizens wouldn't have any practical training. So it would be more raw, right?
But yeah.
Well, and they suggest that with the spears, right?
Yeah.
In that scene where they were holding them up to Logan,
yeah,
right?
so you want that combat to look more rougher, with the throwing of the fists and stuff, a little more savage. And I'd maybe see the breakdown in a little bit of panic on the Sandman's part. It's easy to chase down one mouse, but when you got 40, 50 guys coming at you.
Yeah, or they have people where a Sandman sees another Sandman die, and he's like, that's not supposed to happen.
Yeah, so confusion and breakdown.
The realization that they're like, oh, I may not be as good or survive this.
Yeah, and part of Logan's strengths, at least in our remake, should be is he's adaptable. He seems to be able to adapt on the fly. We saw that adapting to the situation at the beginning. He's like, oh, I'm being forced to go undercover, and I gotta work this, and he's kind of figuring it out as he goes because nobody's ever had to do this before.
Yep.
Well, maybe that's when we were talking about why did the computer choose him. Sure, it might have been luck of the draw, but it might also have been that it had seen this sort of adaptability overall.
And that could be established in that opening scene in a more dynamic kind of chase and combat. Like that runner doesn't fight, he just runs and gets shot down savagely.
Or maybe at some point Logan loses his gun but still gets the runner.
Yeah, there should be a point of maybe some combat there where the sadism forces this guy into a corner and he does fight back. And you'd have to have Logan lose his gun for a minute and Francis off in the background and not caught up yet.
Yeah.
And just enough to show that he's adaptable to a situation.
Yes.
And that can be caught by the eye cameras, and then of course he's got the Ankh and Bob's your uncle, and away you go.
I would also like to see the computer trying to look through going, yes, this is the person, but going 60% chance of completing the mission, or 70%, but there's 30% that the subject will not do what we want to.
Yeah. Yeah, they just calculate the odds.
Yeah. So from here, the Ankh is a key to a door, so they managed to escape the combat of the people to get to this door and get through the door. There's a little fumbling. They lose Jessica's Ankh, but he still has the one from the runner from the beginning of the film, so they get through the door. And more chases ensue through tunnels. This takes them kind of to this weird fishery area.
Yeah, where stuff
That's
used to be.
already in disuse. It's
Yeah,
already
it's
starting to
used.
show signs of disrepair.
And he makes the assumption well, I think this was for food. Oh, they used to eat meat. I'm I wrote down granola munchers.
No, but I think that those scenes
Meat
were
is yummy.
definitely there to indicate the deterioration of the society.
Yeah.
They're showing that things are starting to go wrong.
Yeah,
have
and
been for some time, actually.
Yeah, because this is still part of the city, so that if they're not utilizing it, and there are fish in it, you can see them.
Yeah.
But they're overgrown with seaweed and plankton, and you can see how dirty the tanks are.
Yeah.
And the computer is clearly sealed off the area.
Yeah.
True.
Right, but that's why you need that key.
But it shows you too, there's that whole bit where sure, there's a couple people with jobs, but in a society, if there's no maintenance of parts of your city, stuff's going to go wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
I think that's what that was intended to convey as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're running, and that leads to this freezer area.
That one threw me.
That one threw me. This elevator into what I just assumed was the freezer area for the food, but it opens up into a mountain with this weird boxy robot. And he is a box.
And his name is called Box, yeah.
It's called Box, and that was played by Roscoe Lee Brown. He was actually in the suit as well as doing the voiceover for it, and it was bad.
There was a person you could tell by the
It looked like it came out of a cereal from the 40s.
It's bad
It
Buck
looked
Rogers.
like kids had made the box robot suits that you make when you're a kid.
Yeah.
It was a bad version of what's the one from Buck Rogers, Tiggy?
And
Something like that, yeah. Twiggy.
oh, Twiggy looked way better than this thing.
Yeah, but was it shiny as Twiggy?
It did say that I got the feeling that at least parts of him were human inside. He did say something like he was this amalgamation of man and machine, so
And android.
and would account for its madness because the food they were supposed to send up and him for freezing wasn't being sent up anymore.
No.
But people started coming up, and that was the escapees. So he just started freezing them instead.
He just followed his mandate, right?
And, he's bored, so he kept making ice sculptures.
Very
There's
Soylent Greenish.
Penguins and walrus.
And those were really well done,
Yeah.
I have
Yes.
to say. Can we take one short step back, though, right before they get in that
Sure.
elevator? There's Francis is chasing them. We can't forget this because this is important. Francis is following them. And this is the first scene where I notice, well, not the first scene, but this is the first scene where he shoots out that window and they get soaking wet and they get pushed through they get pushed up to the elevator, and that's how they get on the elevator.
When that tank breaks, like they are thrown around by the rushing of the water.
Yeah.
Like the actors, I don't know if they were stuntmen or not, but they got
Whoever was in
tossed.
there.
Yeah, they got tossed around, and it was a really great visual.
Yeah, it was a great visual, but it looked legit.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
yeah. It's
this-
that deep blue sea mistake.
Yeah, because I mean that's part of the reason that they are taking off their clothes or they're wearing furs in the scene is because they're soaking wet from getting wet. And the only reason I mentioned this particular part of them being wet is from this point on, they get wet a lot.
Yeah.
They spend a lot of time in the water after this scene.
Yeah.
That's true.
And even after they take off the clothes to get warm in the furs, and I getcha.
Yeah.
But then afterwards, they get their same wet clothes on, because I don't know if you've taken wet clothes off in a cold environment and just left them somewhere. They don't dry.
No. They ice.
They ice and become very, very stiff and unpleasant.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was kind of funny. And one of the scenes that was cut from this point, they pose for
an ice
box
sculpture.
for an ice sculpture and get really naked.
And you can see it still from it.
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube. They've taken whatever photos from the scene that they could find, and they have all the audio together. So, but it fell victim to the MGM purge, so the actual footage doesn't actually exist. But it's there if you want to catch it.
Only Michael York and Jenny Agata know the truth.
That's right. So yeah, they escape from there, and another big fall and into water and stuff like that. And
Well, yeah, they destroy kind of that whole place and then end up out in like an exit they managed to find.
Box gets crushed by some falling ice after he's accidentally shoots the roof, and
Which makes me wonder how Francis got through there.
yeah,
I have lots of questions. How did Francis get
Yeah, well, it
there
was
when there was a big elevator and the elevator was gone up? Did it go back down?
He's a good tracker. They need to establish that because he's a very good tracker, but we never actually see him doing any tracking, especially when they get out in the world where they should have no perception of
How to
track or just they're stunned by just seeing the sun for the first time.
Yes.
I don't know what they're looking at.
One of the best scenes in the
So
movie.
there's no
actually.
education
Yes.
about the world outside at all in this civilization. They just everything is new. Logan's curious about it all, and he finds it all fascinating. And Jessica's frightened by it all. Mm-hmm. Like at one point, we see a lizard crawl up her very short dress.
Yeah, she hates the outside.
Freaks out. It was a good line too. She's like, "I hate it. I hate the outside."
See, and I would say that would be part of one thing I would change. I would have her be frightened, but at the same time completely fascinated by it.
Well, she's.
I want her to be somebody who's outside, and sure, she's afraid, but she's like, okay, but this is phenomenally interesting.
She's a fairly strong but cautious person throughout the movie. She's an introvert for sure, but she's very determined in her way of thinking as well. So this is the only time I see her as a bit of where the dome has made everybody very
soft.
They're soft, yeah. They're self-indulgent, and that's the time where she gets really whiny and
Yeah.
she's.
She
where
does
we
get
see
past it fairly quickly.
She does,
Yeah.
and it's something she has to get past because they only know one thing, and everything's going to be terrifying. And I could, it's actually a very natural reaction.
Well, to see any animals of any
Yeah.
kind.
Yeah, anything that wasn't people, it'd be, it's curious. So
And that's part of what that dystopic society makes me so
Yeah.
sad. I'm like, there's no fluffies.
birds. They're hearing birds and seeing the outside and the sky for the first time. And as they get closer to civilization, they see a graveyard. They don't know what that is. They
They
just
don't-
see these stones, but they can read.
Yeah, they don't know what husband
they
or
could
wife
see,
means.
Yeah, beloved husband, beloved wife, and they don't know what those words mean.
And this is where the movie actually, to me, got really interesting. Right? I mean, it was fun up to the escape, and then once they got outside, that's where it got really interesting. Was seeing them experience all of these neat things.
Yeah.
The one thing that I think needs to be addressed in the remake, though, is if they've lived in these bubbles for 250 years, they're going to have no immunities whatsoever.
True.
they are going to get sick. They're going to drink the water. They're going to get sick. They're going to eat.
Yeah, when they saw water, that's the first thing I thought. They're like, water. And I'm like going, oh, but you don't know what's in that water.
Yeah.
Like beaver fever. That's
Yeah.
what you'll get.
Right. I mean, to be fair, I mean, there's been no human contamination in those water systems for 200 some years.
Yeah.
That water is actually probably going to be relatively clean. It's probably going to be cleaner than the water they're drinking, actually, because it would have been recycled.
I would like to have seen them struggling trying to find something to eat.
Yes, like all of those things that would have made it a lot more interesting, which I think would feed really nicely into what I think Jay's got planned.
Yeah, well, I mean, at one point they are looking for water because they know they're going to need it soon.
Yeah. They're
So
dehydrated.
they are still aware of basic.
So they swim
basic
in it
needs.
rather than drink it.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
is,
they're still aware of basic health needs. So
yeah, they know they need water.
yeah, they just don't know. We never got to a point where they needed food. So
I know, and I
Which
would have
is
liked to have seen that.
Interesting, again, because they, like I said, when later on, when they're going back in that last half hour, they indicate that it takes days.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
they would have been starving by the time they
Yeah.
reached.
Yeah, they walk into they see a city
destination
from afar, and
All
one of their
covered.
first sights is the Washington Monument. So we know this is an overgrown
Washington,
D.C. And they're walking right into the Capitol. So then they see a statue of Abraham Lincoln, and this is where he looks like nobody I've ever seen before. He looks old.
Yeah.
Which was a really neat line. Like it's just the way it was delivered, like this quizzical look. What's all those lines on his face? You know, that he looks old. And
Yeah.
it's just not something nobody's ever seen old.
Yeah, they can't. They quite simply can't comprehend age.
No.
Right?
And then they see the old man. And,
They know what a human looks like, and they're like, but he looks so different.
Yeah. Now, as soon as they see the old man, that's where I'd fucking roll the credits. Right there, cut that. I'm like, if whoever's developing this is thinking franchise, that's where you cut it. This is their first look at somebody outside the dome, and that starts a new chapter. And it does in this movie. It starts a whole new chapter.
Yeah.
You know, they've escaped. They've hit their goal. I think they're at a point where they realize Sanctuary doesn't exist.
Well, yeah, he does before
Yeah.
she does.
Yeah. Actually, in the novel, Sanctuary does exist. It's just another planet, and they go to Florida and Cape
Yeah.
Canaveral and fly to Jupiter or something. I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Because there's 3 books,
Yeah.
right? And they got
A few
progressively
more.
weirder, apparently.
Yeah, so it's just bizarre. So I would nix those. That whole flying to another planet thing, that sucked.
Yeah. Well, I like the idea of it like being, I don't know, I felt I was getting Planet of the Apes again.
It did, especially when they saw.
Yeah.
Lincoln, like I know people's ideas about it. Like it has to be Washington D.C. Does it really?
No,
Not
it doesn't.
Actually,
I
it
feel
shouldn't be.
any capital you could deal
Well,
It
with.
should be. It actually should be somewhere. I mean, you look at the climate. It should be somewhere more southern.
Yeah.
In the States, if it's going to be in the States. But it can't be Washington. Washington's too far from the ocean for them to walk that even a few days.
Yes.
Yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense.
It made 0 sense because that city is on the ocean. They make that very
Yeah.
clear.
But they wanted the iconography more than
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
else, I think. You know, there's
And I feel there's other iconography you could use.
Yeah, because Francis catches back up, and there's a fight, and one of the cats looks like he got taken out during that fight.
Yeah. my how I deal with Francis is very different. Than in this
Yeah,
song.
and Francis grabs a flag to fight with, and that's in some interesting iconography there.
Yeah.
It's like this symbol of the Soul Society that he's using to fight with to defend the new one.
Yes.
But then he dies, and I'm like, oh, that's just not right.
And it was a very bad scene. Just it was a bad fight scene. It was
I felt like I turned my head for a second because I'm like, why is he dying?
I know he only got hit a few times.
Yeah.
It was the one on the back that killed him, I guess.
So-
Oh, no, Logan did hit him in the head with the
Twice,
yeah.
and then but he doesn't go down until he hits him in the back.
So yeah, that scene definitely needs to change
Oh yeah,
as we move into a remake. So once Francis dies, they convince the old man to come back with them to the city. Initially,
Yeah.
Jessica doesn't want to go. We just got out of there.
Yeah.
Why do you want to go back? Well, for some reason now he wants to. He thinks he can change society and convince them that this isn't the way the world should work.
well, it's this
And
sense.
this has all been being kept from them.
His inerring sense of what is right,
Yeah.
which was put to good use in that society is now not what's going to work for that society anymore, because he now realizes his sense of purpose. He understands now that he has to help people.
Yeah.
He's like, I might as well kill them myself if I leave them to be killed like this.
Yeah, and this final scene is really clumsily handled because, they're bringing the old man back, which I think should pose its own challenges, even if they did, to a society that isn't going to get it anyway.
No.
They're not going to know what's in front of them.
No.
And it's very clear when they leave the old man outside and they go confront... They're going into another carousel, and he's yelling on one of the balconies and saying, "No, this isn't." And they're just laughing at him.
Yeah.
They think he's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so many people in this movie are.
Yes.
Oh, God.
But he's not. He's the only one who isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course they're not going to listen. They're like, why would they? It's been this way for hundreds of years, and why would it change?
Well, and this is how society kind of is. When someone's like, there's a problem here, and everybody's like, my life's fine, then there obviously isn't a problem.
Yeah.
It's that
when people do it now, nobody listens.
Yeah. There's a selfishness at key, which is very much like this society, it totally hits it. Whereas like people are like, I don't give a shit as long as my life doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
As short as it's going to be.
Yeah.
You could tweet it out, it'll go viral, it still won't do shit.
No.
So, the shouting off a balcony to a few hundred people isn't going to work.
Yeah, they handled it exactly the way it would have gone down.
Yeah, exactly. And he's captured by the Sandman and taken in front of the computer because the computer wants to know if he's completed its task. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a neat scene because this is the first movie to employ holograms. And these tubes with these hologram faces of Logan are rotating, and we're supposed to see that this is pieces of his memories being told to the computer, but the computer can't accept it. The computer's already decided what it wants to know.
Yeah.
And if it's not hearing the answers to what it figures are the right
the computer, okay,
equation.
The computer is a conservative politician.
Broken. Yeah, the computer's already broken.
Yes.
The computer's decided, oh no, this is what I know to be true. But if you're not going to tell it to me, you can tell it to me 1,000 times. Eventually my brain will break, which makes it easier. Imagine the computer is the most unreasonable person you've had a conversation with. It's your racist Aunt Fran. It's the person, no matter how many times you can tell them that what they think isn't true, there's nothing you can say that will change their mind.
Right.
Even if you can prove it to them empirically, they just... No, it's not. It's your hard right-wing Christian.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Until their brain crashes, nothing's going to change.
It crashes the computer. Dum, 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 dum.
Yeah.
Dum, 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 dum. I hated this whole end sequence. This whole end sequence is just terrible. So...
I have to agree.
The bonds break. Yeah. The other Sandmen are kind of in a state of confusion and panic as he kind of pushes his way out of the room
and starts breaking the rest of the computer.
He starts shooting at the rest of the computer, the big eyes with the colors on it, and making his way out. But it's just starting a chain reaction now. And everything's
that whole
going up.
Thing destroys the entire city.
Yeah, this is what the Y2K bug probably should have done. And everybody thought was going to do.
But the thing is, like, what you don't understand about structures is unless that structure can only be held up by like maybe an electrical charge, that's the only way it's coming down unless like a super explosion happens.
This is why I want this all to go away because it's terrible.
Well, I don't know if it needs to go away, but it definitely needs to be.
Well,
it needs to be changed.
I feel like there's a whole new movie here. Like this is like I'd already hit an ending 45 minutes earlier in this movie. So
yeah, I don't know if I agree with you exactly where that ending is, but I agree that this second part of the story could.
You can expand upon this into more than one movie.
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
Okay, well. We're at hour 27, so I think it's time to move into our remakes.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you guys want to do a remake or move into fantasy casting first and kind of work the scenes as we go? I think a lot of the scenes still work. They just need to be more action-packed, where you can add some of that choreography with the parkour and the martial arts. And of course, modern special effects. Those guns can do all sorts of things that the book had. So that could be interesting as well.
I really don't think the structure of the story needs to change hardly at all.
No.
I agree that cutting it off around the time you meet the old man is a good place to end.
I think we need to address Box. And that whole weird...
Yeah, that's really odd.
I think it's important. He's an important character. I think it needs to be very, very different, though.
Okay, either this needs to become a more interesting robotic thing.
Or
honestly,
much simpler.
You know what? Actually, simpler is better because I just thinking about it. What if it's the facility itself is automated? Like this boxy robot doesn't really make a lot of sense. I'd make it more like a car factory where you have these automated things on these rods that are moving things around to the freezers.
They're freezing what's on the platform and moving whatever's on the platform to the freezer. It doesn't know
It
that it's
can-
freezing
And
here.
I was seeing him more as like an automated movie machine, right? Like almost like a forklift.
Yeah, I don't know if it has to be anything more than
But I like your idea
a
even better.
basic intelligence and that they have to survive. It's it's just seeing this is its function. I don't think it needs to be this crazy AI robot
And-
thing.
I kind of liked the personality of it. It wasn't very well
It's
handled, but
goofy. It just I don't think it'll work now.
I want the basicness. Like, you've seen the movie Moon,
Yep.
where it's like just Kevin Spacey, sort of the robot that does stuff, but not like that particularly super hyper intelligent. Like, make it stupider than that, but still interactive slightly.
You can make you can make it a very basic.
I mean, he doesn't have
response
to
voice
be. He
command.
doesn't have to be as off kilter as the character. But
Oh, yeah.
I think that there
Get
has to
rid
be
of that
a
part.
certain AI there, and it's focused, right? Because I mean,
Yeah. I think the structure would be the box, like short for icebox.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a way better way of looking at it.
Yeah.
I want it to be a simple
and then
machine.
the whole building's alive.
Yeah, and
trying to kill them.
yeah, but not because he's nuts, but because his mandate is whatever comes up that elevator gets frozen for food.
Yeah. What if it's not just frozen for food, but it's also the butchery?
That's what I was going with. I was going through the whole
you're trying to
Soylent
work
Green thing.
Yeah.
Where these people are getting butchered, and that's where the food is coming from. Because that's sort of what I got
Well,
when I was watching
I still
this.
like that it's a function because these people don't eat meat. So I still like it's this automated function for something that's been closed off from the city and is no longer being used. But that part of it of the system is still working.
Yeah.
It's just it's working on its basic programming, but it's no longer connected to the city's programming.
That's right. Yeah. And that's the way I was seeing it certainly as well. And I mean that's the way it was presented is he has a job to do, right? But and he even says the food stopped coming, so I froze what was coming up.
Yeah, whatever comes up, I froze.
Yeah. And I think that's still great because that really does explain why nobody's made it to Sanctuary and why Sanctuary doesn't really exist because nobody made it past the box.
And
But
also,
it
what
could
else?
also be a carnal house. Like it could be the maybe they were sending in livestock and the automated system was doing the butchering as
For
well.
sure. But what I also like is how it could show that contrast between like Logan and the other Sandmen. The Sandmen are just that same type of mindless.
Yeah.
Like that contrast of like when Logan's like this mindless machine is doing kind of what I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that could certainly play to the psychology that is going on in this movie.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree. That would be was one of the scenes that did bother me.
Would you keep the orgy house?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would too.
Yeah.
And I
would
do
too.
like the
Yeah.
suggestiveness of it, not the overt.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be uber graphic or anything like that.
Yeah, well, there's a lot in here, which makes me wondering, like, how it did maintain its R rating, because that would have gotten R rating now.
Well,
Even that scene, because there's still a lot of nudity.
we've discussed this in other movies too, where it's the society's take on nudity at that time. Like at that time frame, a bare boob
more
wasn't considered
liberal 70s.
obscene.
Yeah, well, I mean,
And nowadays, oh my god, a
talk
bare
about-
boob, the children will all die.
yeah, one of the first scenes we see in Clash of the Titans is a breastfeeding scene. So
Yeah, what a boob is for, guys.
yeah.
No, I mean, it's kind of scary how, and I'm not saying all societies, but certainly North American society.
Oh yeah, specifically North
Specifically
American.
American. Did I say it out loud? Sorry, guys. There's a certain Puritanism. Sorry, I had trouble saying the word. That's making a resurgence,
Oh yeah.
and it's really kind of frightening.
Well, and it is, especially when you look at television now, where most recently Hannibal has got gore in it that is far exceeds its film counterparts on television.
On
and
network
yet-
television.
And yet,
Yeah.
sex is still
You can
frowned
butcher a
upon.
person, but sex is not what you can show.
Yeah, so there's some weird backwards thinking going on there. And I'm not saying just throw full frontal on television. I mean, God knows they do it on Game of Thrones every time they can do
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah, it's not when it's appropriate or when it serves a purpose to a scene or a film.
Yeah.
I do
or a
feel
story.
like we've lost balance in
Oh,
these
yeah.
things, and time and appropriateness to it all. And sometimes, it's just overdone. Like Spartacus, I'm like, God, they did it any chance they could get in
Yeah.
Spartacus, to the point where I was so uninterested about anybody.
Yeah,
making
and
it in
there's
that
like
movie,
there's a
that show.
gratuitousness to it. Like
Yeah.
in this one where they're getting out of the clothes because they're wet. That makes perfect logical sense.
It makes sense, and I mean, I think that the love club or whatever they called it, was there specifically to depict the hedonism of the society.
Oh, well, and
Right.
it certainly was part of the free-thinking 70s. I mean, sex clubs existed in the 70s.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, no, and
in a hedonistic society, that would totally exist.
yeah, and I do still see this society as hedonistic, possibly even more so than it was in the original film. Because, to be honest, the society continues to get more self-absorbed and all about the individual pleasures rather
Yeah.
than
I want to bring in the whole narcissism.
yes.
I want it to feel like there's the narcissism where like I kind of as a commentary, not so much as how I want it to play out.
Oh,
I
sure.
want Logan to be really upset that she's rejecting his advances.
Yeah,
because
But
he
still
feels
respectful.
still respectful, but like to address that fact, like he feels entitled just because she's there.
Yes, I agree, and I think that everybody in the society should be absolutely beautiful. I mean, I think that as part of their gene.
They're genetically modified babies.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
they
think
are,
right?
yeah.
And they should be utterly beautiful.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree with that as well. I mean, Logan's Run is a commentary film. It's just a very subtle one. And
I'm okay
This-
with making it a little more in your face, though.
yeah, I'm fine with it being
Yeah.
in your face. You can still do it, make the message clear without making it be just the message.
No, it still has to be
Yeah.
entertaining, right?
Yeah,
And it will be.
Like,
right?
I mean, Tomorrowland was one of those message movies where the message made the rest of the movie less enjoyable. So you got to, again, balance.
Yeah.
I mean, pick your moments. But, science fiction should
Science
have
fiction
commentary.
has most often been used as commentary.
and that's when it's used at its best. Okay, well, you know what? Let's move into some casting here, and we can, if we think of some more stuff, we can address it along the way. I made my intentions clear. I'm thinking, I'm kind of going into this thinking what they're already thinking in Hollywood right now of trying to reboot this as a franchise, which is why I kind of want to lose that end sequence, because it would be the third movie, right? Taking down the
See,
city.
Yeah, like I think that, but to me, like getting to the man and being around Sanctuary, that could be like your second movie, but your third movie is
Yeah.
when they go back.
Yeah, no, I agree with that general idea, certainly.
Yeah, if you're thinking trilogy, that's your third movie, that third act there.
Yeah. I think that there has to be more.
They have to get out of the city.
They
though,
do have to go to the
first
city,
movie.
and there has to be a certain amount of interaction with the old man before you end it. I think that you need to see the lights go on for Logan before you end that first movie.
You can do that with your actions, though. Like they need to see him. I think that's all they have to do, and then part of your interactions are your second movie.
I do want them to have the realization there is no sanctuary, and that's how that ends. I feel that that's important.
And I
But they make that those assumptions before they meet the old man. I mean, there's more.
I want
they
it
do ask about it.
finalized.
yeah, they do ask me about it,
But
and
I mean, does it ever finalize? Because he doesn't know what the hell they're talking about, and why would he? He's never existed outside of this place. Sanctuary could still exist. That film never really answers that.
no, and I think that's where your second film comes is the search
Yeah.
for sanctuary,
Yeah,
right?
And you're talking,
But they want them
new
to
plot
believe that
lines.
maybe it's probably not there. I want them
Yeah.
to have that. I want that bummer ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how about this? How about we agree? They meet the old man at the end of our film. The second film is them still searching for sanctuary and coming to the realization that there isn't, and then coming back to that old man.
That's what I was seeing as well. I think that the conversation with the old man, because the old man's not going to be able to travel with them through the second
Yeah.
movie, but certainly I think that he would have a lot of important things for them.
Yeah. Assuming he's old. I mean, he just has to. He could be in his mid-50s and he'd be old to these people.
That's right.
Oh yeah, that's the way I went. I went statistically young for this. Like
Yeah.
my guy's in his 60s, but he's not.
and
Yeah.
can be part of that plot.
Yeah.
And that could be an interesting thing. And we're not gonna. I don't want to get into too much of what three movies would look like.
Yeah.
But I think that's your basic structure. And then they continue going out. This old man doesn't know, he's never really left where he is. So it's him seeing the rest of the world for the first time too. But at least he's aware of what the world used to be.
And I would kind of
somewhat.
Kind of like some bits where like his parents had told him some things and had written down some things about what society was and what could have been.
Yeah, like he didn't know what the paintings of the presidents were. He didn't really remember his parents look like anymore. But he's been driven half mad by isolation as well.
Yeah.
But he still knows the basic concepts of the world. He'd know what the sun is. He'd know what wife and husband mean, and he did.
Yeah.
He did, because of his interactions with his parents, yeah.
You know, he is the person who can teach this new society.
And I love the struggle where he's trying to find the word father because he can't remember certain words.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
Yeah, the struggle with some of these concepts are quite wonderful. And then the third movie would be bringing him back to the
So
city.
you've got Logan's Run, Logan's Search, and Logan's Return.
Yeah.
And part his role gets huge in my third
and
part.
I mean, it could be a huge action franchise, science fiction franchise. So,
but this guy's really important the way I want to kind of bring it together.
All right, well, let's get into some casting. Sam, let's go with you. You've been gone, so you can go first.
Okay. So don't cringe, please, anybody, but there's a reason. So for Logan, I went with Zac Efron. I think that he's a very capable actor.
Yeah.
And he hasn't had an opportunity to do an action film yet. He's done dramas, he's done comedies, but no action. So I'd like to see if he can pull it off.
Yeah.
And on that note, because I've seen them work together and I think that they have good chemistry, I went with Dave Franco as as Francis.
I wanted to stay away from Franco because of the other Franco in Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, I kind of had that same feeling, but I really like Dave. I think he's actually
Dave
as good
Franco's
as better actor.
Fun.
Yeah, and I think he may even be a better actor than his brother.
Yeah,
Just like Casey Affleck is a better actor than Ben.
And I can see with Dave Franco, like he has that charm.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Yeah, and that's the other reason I went with him he's got, because he is charming and handsome, and again, I've seen him not only in comedies but in other roles and found him to be quite competent.
Excellent.
And because I really like her, I cast Juno Temple as Jessica Six.
Ooh.
Okay.
For Box, because I was still seeing Box as a character, I went James Earl Jones just because the voice. It was a toss-up for me between James Earl Jones and Michael York.
Right.
I mean, because we always love that little tie together, but I decided not to go with the tie in this time. And then for the old man, Jay, I'm hoping you'll like this. I went with Billy Crystal.
Oh, nice.
I think that he would bring that slight bit of comedy to the role that Peter Ustinov brought to it.
I did find him a bit cartoony to me.
Yeah,
as well.
and I kind of wanted to keep that. That's why I went with Billy Crystal.
Yeah, I didn't have any fully formed idea, so it's actually popping in my head right now. But given the way they want to go, I'd probably go a bit younger, and I don't know. Yeah, it's still not fully formed.
My
brain
guy's
yet,
younger
but
and capable of going on a journey too.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the last thing I did was I didn't cast the Farrah Fawcett character for director. I went with Neil Blomkamp because I think he makes great movies.
He does.
Yes, and he does good kind of alternate societies.
Yes, so I thought that he'd have a really interesting take on it.
Okay.
I know he hasn't done anything that somebody else has written or revisited something that somebody else has done, but I think that he brings something new to it.
Yeah. Now, Trish sounds like she's got a lot of explanation into hers because she's got a different direction. So I'm going to save you for last.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, you're going to like some of my choices here.
Yay!
Now, starting with my director, because it does inform some of my cast, I'm going to start with my director. And that's Pierre Morel. Oh, and you're giving me that look. That's so disappointing. He directed Taken, Transporter, and District 13 or B13.
See, I'm terrible with names, but I know you
District
said
B13.
that. Oh, yeah. Oh,
ties
my
into
God.
And one of the
Action
first movies I saw was B13.
Oh,
and,
yeah. Belly Size.
And it was fantastic, and that's where I really saw what parkour could add to an
It's
action
so
film.
cool.
And it's since informed some of his other films, and man, does it look good.
And he does a good job of like those bits of society where there's like the haves and the have-nots, the ins and the outs.
Yeah. So we know this guy can do running action movies.
Nice.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm like, I'm on board with you because I know you could do this, and you've already done Weird Societies and things like that. So this is definitely, I think, a movie up his alley. For my Logan, I went with Johnny Weston. He is currently a lead in the Divergent series and
Nice.
was also in Taken 3. All my cast is under 30.
As was
legit.
mine, yeah.
Nice.
Unlike the original where they weren't supposed to be over 30 and pretty much everybody was. Because there's a lot of great young actors out there. And,
Yes.
and most of these play to that good-looking quality that Sam was talking about earlier in the podcast.
Yeah,
here.
this is
So,
the first time we've cast where I haven't gone, they're too fucking pretty. It's like,
yeah.
oh, wow.
You can get away with it.
You can get away with it, yeah. This is actually a really great opportunity.
Yeah, for Jessica, I went with Nina Dobrev. She's in Vampire Diaries and Final Girls, and she's going to be probably the subject of another episode of our show. She is attached to the Flatliners remake in 2017, as well as another XXX movie, The Return of Xander Cage or whatever the fuck his name
Xander
was.
Gage.
So, she's definitely moving up right now.
Nice.
And could be a strong lead character as well. For Francis, I went with Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. For
I'm a fan.
For Doc, I went with Richard Madden.
Ooh.
Yeah, well, it kind of looked like it.
Yeah.
He does, yeah. I was thinking, like, oh my God, you
Kinda
couldn't
looked
have
like-
picked anybody who looks more like that guy.
Yeah, I'm like, I came across his name. I'm like, dude, you totally look like that dude.
Yeah. And really, I didn't cast Doc because I didn't think it was like a major, he was significant, but he wasn't so significant that I felt it needed special casting.
Yeah, I'm like, there's so few major characters in here, like, that had significant screen time.
When you see the
dialogue.
end credits, it's a tiny block of people.
Yeah, so I just, like, who are the keys?
Yeah.
And then we talked about My Holly, which was Farrah Fawcett in the film, and we already talked about, I said J-Law, so Jennifer Lawrence in there. And it's a nice Easter egg for fans of these type of movies.
Yeah.
So I didn't cast Box because I just didn't think it was an important scene. Like, it's awkward.
I cast as a
And
voice,
I didn't want
not
to.
as
Yeah,
a
and
machine.
for me, it was just it's a special effect. I was initially yesterday. I was thinking giant robot, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of done to death. And then just as we were talking, I'm like, what if the whole thing, like the box, is the building, and then as a short for Icebox, and it can have an AI. I don't know what that voice would be. I mean, my first thing would go to whoever voiced somebody on the Transformers that's still alive. So sounds like Optimus Prime.
Yeah. I could see James Remar as the voice of Box as well.
Yeah.
He's got one of those.
Yeah, there's some great voice talent down there. I wouldn't do like a famous actor. I would do a somebody who's good at voice acting.
Yeah.
Just go give those people the work that they deserve. So
Nice.
and the old man, I'm on the fence, but given my director, I'm thinking Jason Statham, somebody in his mid-50s who can be part of the action in a sequel.
Yeah.
And can go with them.
See,
I
I'm
want
liking
to
that.
see
And
him
becoming
go.
a major character in a second and third film.
I would love to see a director who makes him do baddie.
And you can still
want
age
him
him
to
up a
do
little
baddie.
bit more, right?
Oh, and he does
seeing
it very well.
And seeing him be
Yeah.
crazy, that'd be pretty cool too.
But like comedy crazy, that would be so amazing.
Well, we have and Spy.
Yeah.
He's nuts in
he's
Spy.
nuts in Spy, but that's like aggressive
Yeah.
nuts.
And
I want to see him be like potty old man
Yeah.
nuts.
Now it wouldn't take he's borderline 50 right now.
Yeah, he's like 47,
So
48.
it wouldn't take a lot of makeup to push him into early 60s.
Well, especially given that he is losing his hair. He owns it, but he is losing his hair.
Yeah, so it wouldn't
all he
take-
needs is a beard and some and some.
And his
wouldn't take
gravelly
much-
voice
yeah.
gives him age.
Yeah, and it wouldn't take much to make him look a wee bit older, and yet you can still bring him into a bit of the action, and that weary kind of he gets into a fight and he's really weary, unlike how youth would deal with it. So where they kind of bounce and keep going.
Yeah.
So that could lead into a potential second and third film with him in a more proactive role rather than and he could still be this crazy fatherly figure, but not so roly-poly cute. So, I mean, it depends on the way you want to go, but...
Yeah, I mean, when I was casting, I was, again, as I do, I was thinking straight up remake, because I didn't see a lot of changes needed to the film itself. But if we're reworking, then that's a better choice, certainly.
Yeah. I'm certainly thinking franchise.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of... am going in informed with what Hollywood has in mind right now. So I'm kind of thinking in those terms. And because I'm kind of hoping that it will happen and we can go back and say, hey, yeah, they did do that.
Yeah.
Or they didn't, or they should have listened to us.
Yes.
Yes. They should have decided.
Not that
to do
we're
something.
making a lot of changes to the first film, because there's a lot that does work. They just it needs to be rounded out in
And
a more
updated,
modern way.
Yeah.
And look better and be less confusing along the way. Box being a really awkward scene, and the end scene we're waxing because it's going to be a different movie and can be drawn out and made a more well-rounded thing. So as an entire movie unto itself, because it is.
Yes. Yeah, there's more to be done here. Like, I feel like the journey back has to be another film.
Yeah.
Like that they sort of just did this because this quickly gave it resolution. Like showing them the old man gave it resolution and just destroying the city. That's a quick way to get there if you're just doing one film.
Yeah, and it does. I mean, that ending, it feels like a whole other movie got tacked on to the end. And, I mean, it could have easily been 2 full films. And, you know, I'm envisioning this as at least a 3-film franchise. So, I mean, there's definitely more places to go. I don't know what would be in that middle film, but that's where you can get really creative with and make it a little more Road Warrior.
I see like a search for Sanctuary. Like I think that there's some doubt that the Sanctuary doesn't
It's the type of sci-fi that you can move into different genres of science fiction in each film.
But you know what
in your journey?
I see sort of the second film as, they are out searching, but I can see them coming across another city that has been made that has no awareness that other cities like this exist,
or that's completely collapsed because it's so it was so poorly maintained that there was obviously another city, but it's vacant.
And we don't know
but they
what
found survivors.
Yeah, and we don't know what the collapsed society is too. You could have nuclear reactors blowing up and mutations and all sorts of fun things you can make special effects out of. So
yes.
Okay, well, we're getting sidetracked again. Let's hear your ideas, because you've got a lot of them.
I have a lot of ideas. But do you want to start with cast or like my ideas?
Start with your cast and go ahead and feed into your ideas.
Okay, my Logan is Arjun Gupta.
I have no idea who that is.
He's in the cast of The Magicians right now.
Okay.
He's very youngish. I don't know if he's under 30, but he's very youngish looking. But he's not your standard, like, whitewashed person.
As long as you could pull off under 30.
Oh, he totally can.
Yeah.
But he's intense. He could totally bring it in. For my Jessica, I've got Zoe Kravitz.
Cool. So you came across my list, and I'm like, I used her in a previous remake. So.
And I have not, therefore.
Recently, so I just left
went
it alone.
With this. Yeah. And I can see her kind of pulling off both the questioning things, but also like she can be more actiony.
Right.
Okay. Francis. Oh wait, no, I'll get to Francis last.
Okay.
That's the thing. The old man, William H. Macy.
Yeah.
He's 62-ish, but he still can. You just get him all furry.
And he can do crazy.
He can do
We've
crazy.
We've seen that on television recently. And he could do wise as well.
Yeah. He's a very versatile actor.
He really is.
I like William,
and bring enough quirkiness to that character. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, get him all furry. He'll look
if
old.
you want to stick to a little more of that core quirkiness, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that idea because it'll give that levity for some of the dark stuff I'm thinking of. Okay, for Box, I just have it as a voice, but Patricia Clarkson.
Sure.
Yeah. The doc is his name is Godfrey Gao.
Oh, we should. Nobody cast the computer voice. I didn't.
No, I was thinking about it, but I didn't really. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Godfrey Gao.
Godfrey Gao, Asian Canadian model, and also an actor.
Oh,
he's pretty.
You know who you make the computer voice? That lady who voices Siri.
Oh my God! Yes, yes. Pay her tons of money and make her that voice.
That would be amazing.
Okay, changing that. Siri lady.
Oh, you actually had that cast?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. And when it comes down to Francis, I'm sticking with what the original idea was. The book that Francis has a malfunctioning clock and is 42. And
he's
it's just
the
keep
one
going.
responsible for getting
And it's the one
people out.
responsible for getting people out. Who I cast? There's two options. I first started with me. I'm Francis. Just turned 42. I look a lot younger. I like it being a woman. I don't see why women can't be Sandmen.
Good point.
No, that's true. I mean, it is the 70s, so they're kind of working off the old tropes and stuff. And I was trying to think about multicultural cast, which I didn't. But I was trying to keep that in mind. I'm like, well, would it
for
be,
sure.
or would this be such a pure?
Oh yeah, it
where
might be
they've-
purish.
Yeah, so I don't know. Would the because of the computer, would they breed out race or just make it a
See,
unified look? I don't know.
I didn't for two reasons.
I mean, I don't like that.
What I went with for it
That'd make
was
the computer really evil, though.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
true. It would make it really evil, but like my understanding of it too is like how you said, like all the most beautiful people, beauty is like everywhere. That's one thing. But two, I think they were just using the strongest genetic stock. If you happen to be of a certain race, but you were this resistant to like this type of disease or virus, they would just use it.
I mean, this original film is whitewashed, but I don't think it has to be.
No,
Yeah.
right. I mean, really, the cast could easily be multicultural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely different shades of skin tone. There's
I'm-
no reason it couldn't.
Yeah, and I'm totally fine with that.
And I feel like it was just going with just the strongest genes. It doesn't have to be.
I was looking at casting, and I might have fallen into a bit of a trap of actors that look like the actors from the original film. So.
Oh yeah, I know. I did. I was looking for young Michael York, and there's not a lot of guys who look
No,
like
well,
young Michael York.
I just thought tall blonde.
And then I went a different route, which got me to Arjun Gupta. I'm like, oh, he's nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they're not going to cast me, I did have a backup.
He actually fell on my list. So
Yeah. Byung-hun Lee. He was from Red 2. He's been in a few other action movies. You'd know him if you saw his face. But
Okay.
he's 45, but he looks a lot younger than me.
Right.
He could totally pass for somebody who's going under the radar for that.
Oh well, Sam and I have a friend named John who's Asian, and he just doesn't age.
Nope.
He doesn't.
I know. This guy looks
he just,
amazing.
he just hit 50, and I'm like, I feel like I look older than he does.
I feel like there's an age where we just passed each other, and I started looking older, and now he starts looking younger than me.
That's not fair.
I know. But I have
And I
another.
look pretty damn young for my age.
You
too.
do. We all do.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Yeah. But yeah, I do want this part. I believe I could be Francis.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
So,
But I have another-
She's being narcissistic.
I am.
Hey, that's my job.
Which totally fits the film.
True. No, I love this. No, I don't see why Francis
This
can't
is
be a woman.
her birthday episode, so she cast herself.
I did. See how this all comes together?
Well, there was nepotism in the first movie, so why shouldn't
For
there
sure.
be in the remake?
Exactly.
And part of what I did too is I know how this society sort of works, but what I kind of would like to add is just another thing to kind of get to why they can't maintain their own city. I want this society to largely be illiterate. I want them to understand certain things, but the best way to control society is make them illiterate and make them believe in something.
Yeah, well, I was actually surprised that they could read myself.
Yeah, I
'cause
agree.
thought about that. I'm like, would they be
Yeah.
illiterate? Would they be interested in
I believe they
reading?
know how to press a button with a picture and something comes to what they want, and that's it. They don't know how to read.
I would maybe say the ones that are keeping the system the way it is, like the Sandmen, should be able to read somewhat, so they
Yeah.
can see, because almost everything
But
the
not
computer
too much.
said was also delivered in text.
Yes.
But I feel that knowledge should be very, very limited.
Insular.
I feel it should be the concept where, in order to keep this going,
It's those who need to know it.
Yeah.
There's hide the elitism behind the need to know kind of thing. Because there is an elitism in this movie that is suggested but not really.
yeah, and I feel this would also
Visible.
feed into the fact that nobody knows how to maintain this place.
Yes.
The people who thought of doing this didn't think ahead.
Yeah, they didn't put a system in place where they could teach the next generation what it is, because it's all fully
Yeah.
automated.
Well, and
as the automations start breaking down, if they're just isolated and closed off.
And I mean, they're killing off the people who would be doing that work about the time they start to become actually really good at what they were supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
So they don't even really have time to learn how to do these things.
Yeah, when
well.
you start limiting an age of 30, they're just kind of hitting and coming out of an education in today's society where they could do these type of things, especially like professors and doctors and things like that, and engineers. They go to school for 5 to 10 years. That's a third of their life.
Yes.
And they hint at it in this movie when Logan goes to get his face done. He's looking at him like going, "You look awful young. Can I see a red hand on you?" He's like, "Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm older than I look." So they kind of intimate that that's an issue in some respect.
Mm-hmm. The constant recycling of people. I mean, in most maintenance jobs, the same people do it for a long time, so they know the quirks and they know how they fix something when it broke last time. You're not getting that.
No.
Because chances are every 4 years, it's a new maintenance person.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, Right. So, I mean, there's all kinds of flaws in the society that keep it from running.
And by the time they figure it out, their time is up.
Yep.
Yeah. I totally dig that.
And that's how I feel like the old man, when he comes back, he's the one who actually has the most knowledge and the most literacy. He has books. He's been surrounded by books forever.
Yeah.
And you know what? You can make him very handy. I mean, maybe he's learned how to generate power via turbines or whatever.
Because he read it in a book.
He read it in a book. Yeah, so there's a lot of good opportunities there for the second movie as well to bring the old man a far more useful character.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can be in where they are in the guts of the city. Yeah, the guts of the city where they're all moving around. He's like, "Oh, well, that should be powering that." He can point out where stuff has gone wrong and just rust it out.
Yeah, just those experiences making the city he's in working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Anything else you got in there?
No. That is my key
okay.
points.
Anything else you guys want to add to our remake here?
No, just Hollywood, get off your ass and do it, for crying out loud already.
20 years later, and you're still thinking about it.
I know. The ideas in it, the issues in it are still very relevant.
Yeah, and just keep those in mind. Don't do, just, we want action sequences. This movie has a lot of thought to it. I thought some of the fights were very Star Trek looking, and then I saw Gary Goldsmith did the music for it, which he did almost all the music for Voyager and Star Trek Next Generation, and I'm like, oh, okay, that would explain. There's some connections.
So
to
it should have been that
stuff.
Dun dun da da da.
It did. I didn't think about music for our remake, but there was some interesting stuff actually in the music in this one. When they're in the city, that's where we hear electronics outside of that initial theme where there's a mix of band and electronics. Otherwise, when they're in the city, that's the only time we actually hear some of the electronic music. When they're outside, it's all instrumental, actual instruments. So it's kind of neat structurally. It doesn't stand out particularly great or anything, but at the same time, when I saw it was Star Trek, I'm like, yeah, it kind of sounds like a Star Trek kind of back theme to it too. So, it's not terrible or anything like that. It's actually entertaining. It just isn't a standout theme.
Yeah.
And those are hard to find anyway.
Yeah.
It is.
Those really
especially in the
memorable
70s. I mean, we're looking at disco and stoner rock, so...
Yeah.
Or they get real experimental.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, stoner rock.
Yeah.
Or sorry, psychedelic rock. We've got Pink Floyd.
But to be fair, music is one of the hardest things to do. It has to be noticeable enough you kind of notice it, but at the same time you don't notice it.
Yeah. Well, if you're on the run and listening to a podcast, hopefully you're listening to ours and sharing it with your other fellow runners. So if you see us post on social media, repost it for us. That helps us out a lot. And, of course, you can always be part of the conversation, suggestions, and comments on an episode or suggestions on an upcoming episode, maybe.
Yes.
Because we do take requests. And
We're going to be doing one.
Yeah, we're going to be doing one of those very soon called the Fan Challenge. So if you have a fan challenge for us, you can submit it at Invasion Remake on Twitter, Invasion of the Remake, of course, on Facebook, and invasionoftheremake@gmail.com. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And whatever you're listening to us on, hopefully it's iTunes, Stitcher, Player FM, Google Play Music, wherever you find us, drop us 5 stars and a short review. The short review just can be a few lines, but it really helps us out. iTunes sees that and could put us on the notable front page, and more eyeballs see the show.
Give
That
us
really
renewal.
Yes, give us some renewal. Don't keep us, you dirty little secret.
Keep our hand crystals pretty.
That's right. So, well, that's it. I'm Jason.
I'm Sam.
I'm Trish.
And guess what? We're out of here.
Woo.